Welcome to Patscast. I'm Brad Whitaker. A bit of a later episode today. Was waiting for the outcomes of the Patriots coaches introductory press conference. And overall, a very optimistic tone. I feel very optimistic about this coaching staff going forward. Not exactly what we envisioned heading into the early parts of the offseason, which obviously ended right after the Week 18 loss to the New York Jets. And look, you got to take it with a grain of salt, right? I mean, when you head into an off season, everyone's confident, everyone feels good, even going into the preseason, even going into week one, and then reality sets in. So take it all with a grain of salt, but I feel fairly confident from what I heard, and I have 5 key takeaways coming out of it. And the first one is the overall transparent communication that we're now finally starting to see from the Patriots coaching staff. A real stark contrast for to the last 2+ decades of Bill Belichick coaching that team. Gerard Mayo opened up the press conference with 15 minutes immediately taking questions from reporters and, did say things like, I'm not going to get into the X's and O's, but was very honest and transparent for the most part and did his best to answer questions from reporters and even was willing to say things like, it's different being a head coach. I'm not used to not being able to watch game film all the time. I have to put a staff together. I have to deal with all these moving pieces and all these personalities. And it's a bit different from being basically the de facto defensive coordinator, which he's been, where he's really been able to focus on the X's and O's, even heading into the offseason. So he was really honest about that. He was honest about his desire and his inexperience being with the Patriots organization his entire career, both as a player and a coach, and how he really made an effort to look outside of the building and lean on guys like the new de facto GM and former director of scouting, Elliott Wolf, who certainly has some experience working with the Green Bay Packers and the Cleveland Browns, and now is here in New England in an enhanced role, if you will, even if he's not formally named the GM. And a lot of these guys are people that have worked with Elliott Wolf in the past. And he also talked about, we've always had a very small staff with Bill Belichick, and we're going to be a lot bigger now than we've been in years past. So we're really making an effort not to duplicate roles, but still making sure people understand those roles and making sure that no stone goes unturned while also not overlapping between the different coaching positions. And I thought that was really interesting. Again, how will this play out when the going gets tough? That remains to be seen, and we won't see that for quite a few months. When they start losing football games, are they going to be this open, honest, and transparent? We'll see what happens there, but overall, a good start right now for the Patriots coaching staff. Second takeaway is really the emphasis on collaborations. Mayo said all the staff hirings were done collaboratively. It was him in the coaching interviews. It was him and Elliott Wolf and other pieces around that really ultimately had a discussion afterwards and made the decision to hire guys like DeMarcus Covington as the defensive coordinator, Alex Van Pelt as the offensive coordinator, who had a very fast interview process, and Jeremy Springer, who obviously is coming on as the new special teams coordinator. But Mayo also emphasized that, we are going to prioritize roles and let coaches hire their own staff as well. And we've seen that with Alex Van Pelt, bringing in a guy like Ben McAdoo with a lot of experience, particularly when it comes to coaching quarterbacks, as Alex Van Pelt has. So he is leaning on his coaches also to have the autonomy there to make those coach hiring decisions to fill out the offensive staff, to fill out the defensive staff, the special teams. So a strong emphasis on collaboration, and Mayo certainly said that in his first introductory press conference as head coach, and that certainly has not changed. Now, the third takeaway, we got a lot of clarity on the coaching duties with this staff. DeMarcus Covington, there was a big question about whether or not he will be the defensive play caller, because for the most part, that's been Steve Belichick, right? With Gerard Mayo leading most of the defensive meetings, really taking on the defensive coordinator role. However, Steve Belichick was the one with the defensive play calling. So people were wondering, okay, is it going to be Gerard Mayo as the head coach calling plays defensively? That is not the case. It will be DeMarcus Covington making the play calls. And Covington was also open, honest, and transparent and said he does not expect the defense to change that much philosophically, at least relative to the other two major units, the special teams and certainly the offense, which is basically going to be flipped on its head. And you like to hear that because the Patriots defense has been their strength. They will likely enter the season, particularly if they bring guys like Kyle Duggar, maybe potentially Josh Uche back. They're going to enter the league as certainly a top 10, but maybe even top 5 defensive unit in the NFL. And you don't want a lot to change there. The changes we really want to see are more on the offensive side and the special team side of the football. Same deal with Alex Van Pelt on offense. He'll be the one calling plays. No surprise there. However, Van Pelt doesn't have a lot of experience. He has some experience being an offensive play caller earlier in his coaching career and in Cincinnati as well during the COVID period when their head coach went down. Van Pelt certainly is it's kind of open-ended, right? It remains to be seen how he's going to be as an offensive play caller. He's had some success, did a really great job in Cleveland in a playoff game in which they put up almost 50 points. But he also coached a game against the Raiders in Cleveland as the offensive play caller where they didn't play so well. So I think there's a lot of upside there, but like a lot of these things, it remains to be seen. Gerard Mayo certainly didn't hold back in complimenting Alex Van Pelt, also reiterating the endorsement of Elliott Wolf, who worked with Alex Van Pelt a lot in the past, and said like he's got a real knack for being able to take the same concept and make it look different on offense. And that's going to be something really new in New England, where even these last few years with Josh McDaniels, even with Tom Brady, like you knew they were going to run the ball. They were going to do a power run on first down. Like the play calling was super predictable. Matt Patricia there. Oh, we're going to throw a bubble screen. Like we're going to see a little bit different concepts coming out of New England and different looks even with similar concepts. And certainly with this sort of old school, new school hybrid West Coast style offense that Alex Van Pelt will likely be running. We're going to see a lot of play actions, a lot of bootlegs, and they're really going to work to establish the run so they can establish the pass and use the passing game almost as an extension of the running game, which is basically how the West Coast offense works. And then we had Jeremy Springer, which actually was kind of the most interesting part of this coaching introductory press conference. First thing that stood out, very young guy. He was asked by reporters if he remembers and where he was during the Adam Vinatieri snowball kick into the wind in the snow. And he said he was 12 at the time, still a little bit older than me. I believe I was 10 at the time, but very strange seeing a young coach like that in there, and certainly came off as like a young Sean McVay style coach. So that was a little bit different. He also talked a little bit about how he's from the South and never really has been northeast of New York, and how he's having a hard time adjusting to the cold Foxborough weather, saying he's losing every tan he's ever had being there. Obviously, he's coming from Los Angeles. So that's going to be a little bit different, but that is the kind of guy you want as a special teams coordinator, right? Someone who's young and hungry, up and coming, and he looks to be that guy. We'll just see how it plays out. Definitely was a different contrast from the days of Bill Belichick. Also was very complimentary of Matthew Slater, who retired officially yesterday. Going to be tough losing him as well. We also did get some clarity on the wide receiver coaching position. Troy Brown is still on the staff, although his role remains unknown at this point. Tyler Hughes is now, we did know this, but he is the new wide receivers coach. He's returning to the Patriots after spending 3 seasons with the team between 2020 and 2022 as an offensive assistant. So certainly understands the building and is going to be able to hopefully bring in some new ideas. He spent this past season at the University of Washington as a quality control coach on offense, and certainly we saw all that offense could do with Michael Penix and Roma Dunze. So going to be interesting. Hopefully it's a lot different. The receiving core is the biggest need heading into the offseason outside of the quarterback position. So It's good to get a little bit of clarity there. And Troy Brown is still sticking around for better or worse. Speaking of Mac Jones, this was probably the biggest story coming out of it. Alex Van Pelt talked about meeting with Mac Jones and having a conversation with him. And he said he's not writing him off, right? Like, everything is on the table at this point. Now, does that mean Mac Jones is coming back and he's going to be the starting quarterback? I would guess no, but didn't write it off, certainly. And he's treating Mac as if he's going to be on the roster next season. We'll see if there's any moves made this offseason, but there is a real chance still that Mac Jones is the one lining up behind center in week one, particularly if, let's say, you pick up a veteran like Jimmy Garoppolo, who you could probably get on the cheap as a bridge quarterback. Maybe you still draft a young quarterback, but you want him to sit. Well, Jimmy Garoppolo's suspended for the first 2 games of the season. So if that's the case, I wouldn't be shocked to see Mac Jones being the week 1 starter, even if it is just temporary. But Alex Van Pelt meeting with the players, and sounds like he spent a little bit of time with Mac Jones. So if you're thinking like he's going to be traded around draft day or some point before then, like, I'm not sure it's going to happen. We could see Mac back. Let me know if you want to see Mac back. It's a really polarizing topic in New England. There are a lot of Mac Jones supporters out there still. I think most people, however, want to see him gone. I'm still a little bit bullish on the guy. Obviously, he's been put in a bad position for the last couple of years, but he still has the ability to be what he was as a rookie and build on that, at least with the right protection in front of him and with an actual receiving core. So I think there is still some room for improvement. Really, his issues, other than arm strength, are all mental at this point. So can he get the confidence heading into next season, build on that scar tissue he built up, and come back and be the poised decision maker that he looked to be as a rookie, that he looked to be even heading into this past season before all the hits that he took and all of the dysfunction that we saw in that locker room, which a lot of people blame on him. I don't blame it on him at all, really. I think it's just more people were tired of seeing him out there and failing, and they wanted to see something new. But I wouldn't write him off at this point, and certainly Alex Van Pelt is not doing that. And last but not least, the offensive situation is very fluid at this point. Alex Van Pelt says that he intends on building the scheme based entirely around the personnel. So he's not going in there saying, hey, here's exactly what we're going to do. I love the old school Mike McCarthy, Bill Walsh, West Coast style offense. That's what we're doing in New England. No, he's basically saying, I'm not committing to anything at this point. We're going to see how the offseason plays out. We're going to see what we build up on that offensive line, what we build up on that receiving core, what we're going to get at that quarterback position, whether it's Mac Jones, a veteran, or a guy we select at 3 overall. That will determine ultimately how I design this offense. So Alex Van Pelt was not committing to anything there, and we'll see if he's going to take the new school Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, West Coast style approach, go to the old school McCarthy, Bill Walsh, or maybe he's going to mix in some similar Patriots offense from the Earhart-Perkins scheme that they've been running for 20 plus seasons at this point. Maybe it's going to be a hybrid of the 3. That's really going to depend on the players that are coming into that locker room. Also talked a little bit about what he seeks in an offensive lineman. Said he likes smart, tough, athletic players. No real revelation there, nothing interesting to write about, but certainly values toughness and wits and all that stuff that really has been important for players in New England for the last 2+ decades. And he also talked about his failures, and I think that was an interesting part with Alex Van Pelt. He said he talked about how he struggled being an offensive coach in NFL Europe and how nobody really cared about it because no one was really paying attention to that league, but how that really informed his ability to coach going forward in the regular NFL. And look, he's had some ups and downs, but the Cleveland Browns, if you look at what they have become, and they were certainly a decent team heading into the playoffs. They were a wild card playoff team, was much better than people expected, especially after Deshaun Watson went down. Did a lot with Joe Flacco. We'll see if he's on the Patriots roster next year. But certainly was willing to talk about his failures as an offensive coach and how he's built on that. So there's a real learning curve to this, particularly with the play calling where Alex Van Pelt only has a little bit of experience. But I feel very optimistic coming out of this, even if this wasn't exactly the coaching staff we envision heading into the offseason. But what do you think? I want to hear from you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, or subscribe if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. And weigh in on the comments. Are you excited about this coaching staff? Were you satisfied with this introductory press conference? You're not going to get all your questions answered, but were some of your questions answered? And what would you like to see happen with this roster, with this scheme? Are you a fan of the West Coast style offense? Do you want the old school? Do you want the new school? Do you want to see some of the old Patriots concepts mixed in there? I'll be interested to hear from you, and we'll be back with more Patscast tomorrow.